All right, and it's a good afternoon to all the influencers. I appreciate the folks that are here live today, and I also appreciate the folks that will be here for the replay in the very near future. It'll be posted tomorrow on Thursday, so you'll be able to see it at that time. Uh, we have something to talk about today, which I have taken full advantage of myself in my career as an agency and as a chamber member. And in fact, I still do it to this day, and that's to act as a connector. Uh, when I find people that I know are compatible or have similar interests or can benefit from another person, I don't hesitate ever to connect the people together. And uh, very frankly, that's irregardless of whether there's anything in it for me or not. What's in it for me basically is the fact that I was able to help and give value to someone else. So let's kind of walk through how some of that happens, and I'll share my screen here with a few details about it, and we'll just talk along the way here. Uh, so those of you who are here with me live, be ready to chime in anytime because I may come your direction. Uh, we'll kick it down to that. And there we go. So we are talking about how becoming a connector can grow your business, your agency, whatever it is that you're passionate about. Using this particular idea will go a long way in helping you become an influencer and become noticed and become respected in the area that you're pursuing. Uh, the name connector was first really brought to light in a book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. And I highly recommend this book to anyone that is into learning about how to influence and how to connect with people. The tipping point was, in fact, known uh, to coin that word, and it defines connectors. Usually, know people across an array of social, cultural, professional areas, and they may work and live in different circles, and that's fine. It's all part of being a connector and networking with other people. Well, in any case, you haven't seen good networking until you've met a connector, and that's really the truth. Good networking is also good connecting. A connector is always thinking about how to help others in his or her network. And that network could be anything. In our particular case, of course, we'll emphasize the Chamber of Commerce, but it might be a number of other things. First thing you have to look at when you're being a connector is to think about others first. Uh, you don't wonder about if you do a favor for something, do a favor for someone by connecting them or helping them actually maybe get a contract with someone or any number of other things. Don't expect it to be repaid. Uh, it's just an introduction. Take it about providing them, again, I say value. If you're willing to help others with no exception of anything in return, you're well on your way to having a connector's mindset. Networking is about building relationships, after all. It's not about putting the equivalent of money in the bank to take out later. It's about future assets. And a person who does connecting has a whole pool of assets. In fact, I can name 30 right now of assets that uh, have been developed. In fact, there are a couple here on with us live today, which I consider assets as far as being friends and being people that I'm able to connect to other people. And if at all possible, help them be successful. Uh, when you focus on what you can do for the other people, you will grow a stronger and more engaged network as well. It's not about having a huge Rolodex. It's about getting to know a person on a one-on-one basis well enough that you can refer them if you find a place in which you should, and it will be of benefit to them. Uh, Go beyond your comfort zone. This is an important little tag here because I know some people aren't comfortable. They're introverted, they're shy, and they don't feel comfortable in a crowd sometimes. But in order to utilize this and to make it most effective, you've got to get out of that mode. You've got to feel comfortable getting in with people and introducing yourself. When you're not comfortable introducing two people, then you're never going to make it in this group. So get comfortable, first of all, introducing yourself to strangers. You need to stretch beyond your natural comfort zone in order to consider how many people you will have the chance to meet. Consider like how many people you have a chance to meet if you speak to strangers at events, an after hours get together, or ribbon cutting, any other number of things. It may be going to the grocery store, for goodness sakes. It can happen almost anywhere. But when you meet those people, don't just say, hi, how are you? What do you do? What's your business? Ask them more. Get a little bit more in depth. Find out some more about that person. And the more you find out, the more you will be able to help them be successful and learn how you can help them personally and add value to their lives. Because believe me, if you add value to their lives, you will end up, of course, receiving it back. Maybe not when you expect it, maybe not when you need it, but it will come back to you. So get out and meet people. You know, we're solopreneurs. We're sitting here, you know, we're in our office. We've got all kinds of things going on. And we talk to people. Yeah, we talk to people on Skype. We talk to them on Facebook Messenger. Sometimes we'll jump on the phone and chat with somebody. But, you know, for the most part, we're kind of out here with a single canoe and one paddle to use to go down maybe upstream, depending on which direction you're headed. And so it's important that you actually get out of that area, get out of the office, the house. You got a home office, which many of us do. Get out of the house, go down, get something, go do something. Don't limit yourself to professional events either. There are many community events like nonprofits, volunteer opportunities, and of course, many other things that go on in any community. If you're in and around the chamber, all you have to do is look at their event calendar, if they're an active chamber, of course, and you'll see all kinds of places that you're going to be able to meet people, get to know them, and introduce them to other people. Let's use, for example, getting to a chamber event. And I may be getting ahead of myself, but let's talk about it at this point. You're going to a chamber event, and that process is you meet one person, you have a chance to chat with them, get to know them a little bit, and you happen to notice there's a guy standing over to the side over there, and he's probably new to the group, or if he's not new, he's introverted, maybe shy. So grab the guy you're talking to. Let's say the guy's name's Charles. You've been talking to. Say, Charles, come on over here. Let's meet. And name tags are on. So let's come over here with me. And as you get close, you'll be able to see the name tag. And let's meet Jim. And just do your introductions right there. Say, Charles, have you met Jim? And of course, you know, you just met Charles yourself, but you do know him a little bit. And of course, the conversation begins. And then you say, of course, and by the way, my name is Chris. So then we have 3 people in connection. Now, you can continue that throughout any event. You don't have to stay with those 2 guys necessarily, but you need to find out about them before you leave that. And then move on and find other people that you can introduce around the group. Now, some of you say, well, I'm new to the chamber myself. Well, it doesn't matter. Certainly the longer you're with a group, and this, whether it be a chamber of commerce or any other type of group that you're a part of, the longer you're there, of course, you're going to know more people. You'll be able to introduce more people and connect with more people. But if you become a connector of people within that group, believe me, you will be well recognized for it, because people don't normally do that. They don't normally take somebody over to someone else and introduce them. they don't normally go over and say, hey, Charles is in the area of tool and die, and I'd just like for you two guys to meet and get to know each other. That is a strong thing within any group. And believe me, if you become the connector, repeating myself, if you become the connector, you will have a great deal of visibility and influence, and also provide tremendous value to the entire group, not just for yourself, but to the entire group. That's being a connector. Also, I'll get this. You want to think of ways to match people up for their mutual benefit too. Now, let's say over time you have met someone that's does dressmaking. I'm just making things up here as we go. And then you find someone, or you meet someone that maybe has a dress shop. Well, obviously right there, you can be a connector. Or you may find somebody that builds websites in our field, and maybe that's all they do, and that's what they prefer to do. But you know, you don't necessarily. Maybe you're not into it yourself. Certainly, you could have it done, but if someone else comes along and needs that particular service, now website's probably the wrong example, but they need that particular type of service. Maybe it's called a referral, but it's also called connecting. Now, there are ways to connect too. There are ways to be careful about connecting. If you want to introduce the dressmaker to the lady with the dress shop, then it's best, number one, to contact the dressmaker first. Don't just use an open, free, go for it type of introduction. Just you guys should meet. Contact the dressmaker and tell her, by the way, I met someone the other day that I think you might like to get to know. And she owns Sally's Dress Shop down on 5th Street. If you'd like, I'll see if I can get you two together. Well, at that point, she says yes. Then you contact Sally's Dress Shop gal. Say, you know, this dressmaker just does a fabulous job. I've gotten to know her a little bit, and I think maybe two of you should get together and chat a little bit. Would you like to get together? Well, by doing that, you've eliminated that little factor of someone saying, well, I don't know why you sent me that person. That was just ridiculous. Well, so there are risks in being a connector as well. Avoid the risk by preparing and doing it properly. The next step beyond just getting out of the house is affiliating with groups. We've already touched on that. All kinds of topics of interest to various people. You may join a group that's into kayaking. I don't know. You may be part of a group that is in a bridge club. I don't know that either. But those are all connector points because you get to know the people, and you also have an outside network that people will like to be introduced to if they have something in common. And of course, the best group to join, as you know, I would say, is your local Chamber of Commerce. I'll repeat a story, and I know I've repeated it before, but one of our members, Greg Douglas, was on one of our trainings, so goodness, I don't know, a couple of months ago by now. And he related the story of, as he was actually practicing this and being a connector within his new chamber that he had become a part of, he had just sat down at the counter, and it was an after hours type situation. And he was talking to a guy that owned owned a store of some sort, but it wasn't anybody that he could do business with himself. And he knew that, but he didn't care. He was just getting to know the guy and finding out more about him and relating to what he did. And then the guy asked him, well, by the way, what exactly do you do? Because you'll notice he had already found out a lot about him before Greg even told him what he did at all. So Greg says, well, I'm actually in, I think it was waste or cleanup, waste cleanup, sanitation, something along those lines. Anyway, commercial work uh, in cleaning up areas. And the guy said, well, geez, I know a guy that's just up north. He's part of, I believe it was some sort of oil camp. I could be telling the story wrong, but an oil camp of some sort. And they had all these empty buildings that they were going to have to clean out and fix up and get ready for crews to come into. Before it was all said and done, that little casual connection at that counter, just sitting and chatting, turned into a multi hundreds of thousands of dollars figure in business for Greg. Connecting, yeah, there's one of the benefits of him practicing being a connector. Uh, and you can be a connector for many, become known as the person who provides that value. We've talked about that already, but this is kind of an interesting picture. I noticed that looks like that's the Prince Edward or somebody there in this picture. So I know he has a lot of connections. I'm sure he gets around a lot in the process. Oh my. Most importantly is ask questions and listen. Yeah, I've just been chatting away here, so I'm gonna kind of open it up a little bit here. Uh, Folks that are on with us live here, what kind of experiences have you had as far as practicing or making a connection for others that you have seen that benefited both them and eventually possibly yourself? Anyone that's had that type of experience? I'm sure many of you had, because we're all people, so to speak. We get out and we get about. Uh, Anyone had those kind of experiences? Well, I guess nobody's a connector yet. I've got to teach you how to be a connector, guys. All right. Bob, you, Rick, Peter, have any experiences like that we've been chatting about here as far as being a connector and its benefits?
Sure, I've got an example. So I went to an after hours with my local chamber, and one of my clients was having a bit of a rough time with some vendors related to T-shirts and things like that. So when I got to the event, I ended up meeting someone who did T-shirts and embroideries and stuff like that. And when my client walked in the room and I saw her from across the hall, I mentioned to him, "Hey, do you see that lady over there? You need to talk to her. I think you can help her." And about a half hour later, I ran in to my client, and she said hello, and she said, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy." I'm like, "I know him already." So apparently they had been talking for about 20 minutes at that point, and they've done business since then. So it was kind of interesting to see how that transpired. It was a long distance connection of all things.
Yeah, and very beneficial to your client, obviously.
Absolutely. The vendor she was using was giving her a lot of headaches. Those headaches disappeared, and it was cheaper. And that guy actually has referred a couple people to me.
To you?
Yes,
Ah,
even though I'm not doing any business with him.
right. Okay, but he knows people that need your services, right? Yeah.
Exactly. He's in the printing industry, so as an agency guy, there's some collaboration there.
And that is the very point of being a connector right there. Peter, perfect example. And I'm glad it worked out for everybody, including yourself. That's always good news. Uh, Repeating that too is when you're talking to them, make sure you learn something about them. Something, I don't know if it's, they like to uh, go out and play 3-on-3 basketball or 2-on-2 basketball, or if they go to the Y 2 or 3 times a week. Those things, those little things like that, are very important for someone to know about someone else if they want to actually make a strong connection. Uh, it's very helpful to ask questions. And you've got to listen. You've got to carefully listen to the replies. Make sure that when you're listening, cut out everything else around you, that, electronic stuff, phones, maybe there's a billboard running off to the side or something. Make sure that when you are listening to that person, act like he's the only person in the room. Make sure that he considers you paying attention to him. And good listeners are hard to find these days. If you're a good listener, then you will be a good connector. That's entirely what it's all about. So listen carefully to their words. Make it a point. Sometimes it helps to make it a point to echo what they've said. For example, I'm planning to go to on vacation. We're going up to Toronto. Well, I understand Toronto's a beautiful place. I know you'll have a great time. Well, as opposed to saying, oh, that's great. Last vacation I went on, we went to, you see, you just turned it around and you made it about yourself. So don't turn it around and just compare vacations. Just compliment him or talk about where he's going and what he's going to be doing on his vacation. You'd be surprised sometimes that if you are listening all the time, not all the time, but if you're listening to a person attentively and you're doing it throughout a period of time, let's say 10 minutes, for example, or maybe 15 minutes. And of course, people like to talk about themselves. It's just human nature.
That's their favorite subject.
That's it. That's their favorite subject. And so after you've listened for 15 minutes and they get through talking, you'll be surprised. Oftentimes they'll say, you know what? You're one of the more interesting people I've met. And they don't know a thing about you because you haven't said much. But they'll think that because of how you've given them, which is your attention and your time, and you're listening to their situation. I found that all so often. Be a resource. Now, being a resource, it's just like Peter said, he was a resource of sorts. But there are other ways to be a resource. Maybe you have a hobby, maybe you have a passion, or maybe you'd like to do certain things. And being a resource means also if you like to golf, for example. Being a resource would mean for other people is recommending, talking about where they might go and have a great time. Of course, then you're talking a little bit about yourself, but more likely you're talking about the location and what you found there. You're not really talking about yourself. And some of that is being a resource. It just fits right in to the entire program. And then finally, follow up. Always follow up with the people that you've started good, close connections with. If you don't follow up in some way, just follow up with a note, follow up with a quick text, follow up with an email from time to time, because as you build these connections and you as a connector have your network and a strong, viable, vital network, then from time to time, make contact. Keep that relationship fresh. Don't just let it go and say, oh, I know Charlie. And then 8 months, 10, 12 months later, you see him and say, hi, Charlie. Keep in touch with those that you consider to be your best connections, your connections within your network that you have the most respect for, whatever the case might be. Follow up, send some occasional notes, do some things that will let them know that you are still interested in them and what they do. So become a good connector in your business and form a bridge. I picked this picture because of the hand acting as a bridge. So you as a connector are that bridge between people. And if you connect those people together, it will serve you well to help grow your business or your agency. So at that point, folks, I'll stop the screen share and open it up for any questions anybody might have today on being a connector or anything else you'd like to share. Just fire away. I'm a good target today. I've been through a lot today, believe me. I've had a lot of shots taken at me today. Okay. All right, then. I appreciate everybody that's been here with us live today. And I hope that each of you that watch this either live or on replay will consider the facts of being a connector in your business or in your personal life and let it bring dividends back in your direction. So,
Christopher, just before we break, I have a question.
Sure. Go right
I was
ahead.
just trying to figure out where my mic was. I'm sorry. How do you make the distinction between setting up a referral relationship and just being a connector?
Well, it is a very fine line, of course. If you're referring someone, first of all, do you know the person that you're referring? Do you know them very well? That's the first question I would ask you. Generally, do you know that person pretty well if you're going to refer them to someone else? Mary?
Okay, so what I hear you saying is consider a referral relationship if you know the person or know the quality of their work and know the person that you are referring them to would benefit from that work.
That's correct. And in fact, that's the pure essence of being connected. So I assume, if you put it in that vein, doing referrals is actually being a connector. In its purest sense, you're helping both of those people, and without even maybe a possibility of you making a dime from it yourself, and you don't care at that point. But you're helping them out. Would I be right there, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can have a referral relationship with someone where you've agreed to give them referrals. I'm thinking a little bit about like the BNI situation where you're supposed to refer people, et cetera, et cetera. But even more so in some meetings I've been in, it's been kind of an expectation that you will refer some of the members to other people, not quite as directly as in the BNI situation, but still as sort of an expectation. And I've always found, well, I haven't always found, sometimes I found that that's quite challenging because I'm not absolutely sure of the person that I'm supposed to be referring. They just happen to be in a similar group to me. And I mean, it's one of the reasons that I really don't like BNI. So I just wondered if you had any words that
yeah,
give me
in fact, you've actually explained it in more detail, which helps me a lot as far as my response goes. My response with those, when it's expected or an obligation like it is in BNI, I don't feel like that person is a connector at all. I think they're just serving their purpose and throwing off referrals. A connector does it without that obligation. They're more into the area of providing value. If I'm in BNI and I know I've got to give 2 referrals or 3 referrals this month or whatever it might be, that's an obligation. That's not really it's not a person saying, well, I want to do this. He has to do this. And also, when you speak of referrals, now oftentimes too, we in this business will get a kickback on a referral, right? And it's kind of like, okay, well, if I refer this, then I'd like a 10% referral fee or something like that. That is also kind of on the borderline as far as what I purely call a connector. Again, a connector does it and does it around within the community, within groups, without expecting a return. Now, why do they do that? My goodness gracious. Why would anybody just give things away? right? You do it because it gives you more credibility than if you are doing it via obligation. And after all, if we have a business of any kind, our reputation, our credibility, and the way people view us is one of the biggest assets that we have. And so I look toward that as my answer as far as what a connector really is. I think that makes a definition. Would you agree, Mary?
Yeah, I think there's certainly something there, whether or not it's in the term or in the relationship that you set up with people, probably in the relationship that you set up with people where you might say to them, you know, if you happen to be in a situation where you end up giving me a referral, I'd be happy to pay you a referral fee. It's part of my way of doing business. I think that's a better way to set it up rather than, like I said, with the BNI where it's almost a requirement. And then I don't think a lot of those referrals are actually good referrals, because I think the person who's having someone referred to them gets the sense that they're not really concerned about the quality that the person might bring to you, nor your needs. I mean, it's kind of, it turns it nasty to me, I guess.
It turns into quantity rather than quality, does it, real fast.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like we've talked about this in our other meetings, our training sessions. When you're networking, it's not about how many cards you can hand out at all. It's about the quality of the people that you come in contact with,
Yeah.
and whether you get to know them and know them well enough to get back with them or consider them at least not a friend, but to become a friend. But it's networking is not about handing out 1,000 cards. It's
No.
just not about it at all. So, but if people that go to networking, Carl, you know this, Carl, people go to networking, that's what they think it's about. And they'll carry a stack of cards in their pocket that makes it bulge like they've got 5 packs of cigarettes in there or something.
Right.
So, and I don't. All they're doing is throwing away money, and for the money they spend on the cards is all they're doing. Yeah. Hey, I noticed, Darcy, you still on with us today? I noticed you were there. I thought, are you on? Yeah, Darcy. Have you had any experience as far as some of the things we've been talking about, connecting other people with folks that they can be of benefit to?
Yeah, for sure I have. My advice, once again, it's basically where you're coming from. You want to position yourself as someone who is there helping them as opposed to someone who's just trying to get something out of them. You know, if you think about the way you would help a friend or, you know, a sibling, a neighbor, somebody like that, you know, if they needed some work done in their yard, you might say, well, this is a good landscaper. You might want to give them a call. It's really coming from there. And if you happen to do that a couple times, then you kind of position yourself as somebody that the landscaper might want to actually seek out because you are maybe sending some business to them up front. And then they're more inclined to want to work with you because of the good intentions that you put forward.
Sure, and that landscaper may need some work of his own done, or he may know of other people that he runs into that needs work that you do to get done. So it's a wonderful circle that you create when you go out to connect others to help others. That circle is a wonderful circle to be in, a very enjoyable circle to be in. Darcy's from Canada and is fairly new to the business. Would I be right there, Darcy?
Relatively, yeah. I've been in local marketing for the last couple of years, more or less, just kind of off and on, and I'm getting more and more into it recently, though.
Very good. And you're about to get ready for winter up there, so good luck.
Yes, it's coming.
It's coming fast, yeah. All right, thank you, Darcy. Appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, no problem.
And anybody else? Rick, I know you've been around so many different situations. Can you pinpoint one that comes to mind where you've actually made a connection that helped other people?
Um, with me being brain dead today, and probably putting out more fires than you, and I'll do tat for tat. Yes, I have had a couple. I've referred a client to a travel agent that I thought of tremendous value. And sometime down the road, that client turned to me to ask to develop a website and online presence for them. And I had no seeking of any, rewards or any business from them. It was just, hey, you want a great travel agent? Call her up. She'll take care of you like, she's known you for 30 years. And it turned around and, that one referral led me to a 25-year relationship where the client doesn't press a button without calling me.
Oh, it's that one you talk about. Okay.
Yeah. And whether I spend an hour work with her or, I don't know, an hour every day, I mean, I get paid a retainer on a monthly basis like clockwork.
As long as you answer the phone, she doesn't care, right?
Well, even if I don't, she'll leave me a message and call me 5 times.
That sounds great.
Yes, they come when it's not expected. And, it could take years down the road, but the connections that you make made properly will stick in a person's mind if you made the right connection and if you were sincere about it without looking for any outcome of it for yourself.
Yeah, the word authenticity is extremely important here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You've got to be authentic. You've got to be yourself and not try to act like you're someone that you're not. Just be authentic. Talk to them as if you're talking to anybody else. I know a lot of people that go into those group sessions. They try to put on some sort of facade. I mean, literally, there'll be a different person at the networking event, and then we get with them one-on-one. They're somebody else. So just be authentic anytime you're around those type of situations. And
absolutely.
And Bob, I always pick on you, but I'm going to pick on you again. I know you've had a lot of situations like this. Do you want to relate any for us?
I'm sorry, Chris. I multitasking like usual. So,
that's all right. No, I was just asking. I know that you, since you're out and about so much, I know that as far as being a connector, that you actually practice this. Do you have any unique stories that you might share with us?
Oh, there's tremendous value in being a connector. You just, you go top of mind when you engage in that practice, and that's important. And then it just leads to introductions, both for yourself and, excuse me a second. At least introductions for both yourself and the folks that you're introducing to one another. I had a personal experience on that just last week with our mixer. I think I told you about that, Chris. So that's going to lead to potentially some additional opportunities. Not that I need anything thrown on my plate this week, but we'll see where that goes.
And that came through a connection.
I'm sorry?
That came through a connection, right?
Yes. I met a gentleman. It turns out he's a salesman for what's the equivalent of like a value pack in our local area.
Penny Saver or something like that.
Yeah, and he was actually referred, sort of a reverse connection. So somebody within the chamber that I'm doing some work for right now mentioned me to him, and so that prompted him to come over and introduce himself and swap cards and all that nonsense. But I've been on both sides of that exchange, and it's very satisfying. Just the sense of satisfaction they get from helping folks. As you've said many times, sometimes you get new people that show up at a mixer or a function, and they're a little uncomfortable because they don't know anybody, and you can really, really help them out by just going over there, introducing yourself first, and then introducing them to folks that you know, because typically you're going to be there and you'll know the people that are kind of running the show and folks that are in attendance that might be compatible with this new person. After you've talked to them a bit and kind of understand where they're coming from, what sort of business they're in, you probably know some people that you can introduce them to, and they'll be very appreciative of that. And again, you get a sense of satisfaction that you've helped somebody out, because it's awkward. Those first meetings are awkward, and whatever you can do to sort of lessen that or making them a little more comfortable will go a long ways.
Absolutely, and that's when they do feel that you've made them comfortable, they will never forget that. As a matter of fact, because that's, to them, that's kind of a traumatic period, even though it's not a tragedy. It's still uncomfortable and something that will stick in their mind. And then, of course, you're stepping in to alleviate that feeling of discomfort is also something that will stay in their memory every time they see you or around you, and will continue for quite a long time, as a matter of fact. And finally, before we shut up, I'd like everybody to have a chance to share some of their stories. Besides Bob, that we just spoke with, we got another Bob up there. Bob, you want to share some stories yourself? What have you got over there?
Well, Chris, to be honest with you, I'm a newbie. I haven't even gone to a chamber meeting as yet.
Okay, Bob, I know which Bob this is. Hi, Bob. All right. Well, that's fine. As far as being out in any of your other activities, have you ever found yourself in situations you're able to be a connector with other people, to help other people?
I did work in outside sales for a hotel company for a while, and did some travel to the DC area, and went to association meetings and things like that, where after you've been to a few of them, you get to meet some interesting people, and you gain some information from them about what they're able to do or what they're interested in, and you can connect people. Obviously we never looked for a referral. It was always gratis, that we were basically working towards a.
Okay. Hey, Bob, you muted yourself before you ended there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm kind of new to this as well.
That's all right.
So we didn't do it to gain a referral or anything like that. It was basically working as an organization, as a team, to help everybody to succeed.
Yeah, it's a part of a team in that particular situation. And Carl, I know that you've got many situations where you've done that for yourself. You got any stories that are pertinent here?
Not so much pertinent as in the practice has spread wide, because when you learn these techniques of being able to connect properly, as well as learning how to give good referrals, you're teaching others on the receiving end. And even in my dance club, there's 2 dance clubs that I belong to, and they're always looking for new members. So they're always worried about how to attract new members. And I think it's just as important to treat new people that are there, as opposed to find more, bring them in, find more, bring them when you got a leaky sieve. So I make the attempt of for some strange reason, when I meet somebody, one of the first things in my mind, I'm always connecting with them, is what they do for business. I know who's a nurse. I know who's a truck driver. I know who's a teacher. And the other opposite side of that is my wife knows every kid in town, what his name is and who that kid belongs to, and she knows nothing about what those people do for business. So we're good in that sense. I don't know, but by doing that, and then I'm like, last night I was sitting down and somebody said to me, I live down the other end of the state. I need to find a ride up here to get here more common. And I said, well, I'll put you in touch with Carrie. Carrie lives down that way. Carrie's husband's a CPA, and Nancy works for a dental group, and blah, 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 blah. And you girls will have a grand old time driving back and forth, which takes about an hour to get to the club. So that starts that sociability between those three people where they've got common grounds to talk about. Marianne's a retired teacher. This one's an accountant. That one's and so forth and so on. So, and to your thing, Bob, I love walking into a business after hours group and seeing the newbies that have that scared look on their face and are hoping and praying that they can find a contact or a referral. And I've told my group this before, and I don't put it out there very often because it's got to be taken in with a grain of salt. I do have a referral, and I'm blessed to have it, where I connected with a supermarket group better than 15 years ago. And last time I checked, I had more than $1 million worth of work referred to me because of that one referral that came to me. So there are no two referrals exactly alike, that's for sure.
Exactly. They are totally varied, but just doing it is proof in itself that it can return value. Carl, I appreciate you sharing that very much.
You're welcome.
Right. Guys, I tell you what, I appreciate your being here today, and these stories are very beneficial to those who will be watching the replay on this, because it's one thing just to look at a slide presentation and talk about certain not PowerPoints, but points of interest, but it's another thing to actually hear the stories about people have actually experienced it. So I thank all of you very much for that. So to all of you, have a great afternoon. Dodge all the arrows and the bullets, and to try to survive another day so we can fight again tomorrow. So goodbye to everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care, Christopher. Great job. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Mary. Bye-bye.